At the end of the 19th century, the new way of capturing images of the West became proof of what the frontier kept hidden. In saloons and brothels, women who made a living that way faced the camera head-on, at a time when men in boots and hats came and went, and there was barely any support system. It was survival, and it kept a lot of people standing. In the 1870s, pulling borax out of Death Valley was a serious fight against the Great Basin Desert. To get the mineral to the rail line, famous convoys were born, huge wagons hauled by a 20-mule team. It was muscle and logistics, water rationed, spare parts on hand, and weeks on sandy roads with the wind burning your face. On the left is Black Elk, an Oglala Lakota who watched the country change from the inside out. In 1876, he became linked to the clash at Little Bighorn, when U.S. troops went head-to-head with warriors of the Great Plains. Later, he told what he'd seen to visitors and authors trying to save his people's memory in 2 languages. If you're into this kind of real Old West history, hit like and subscribe, because the next images get even more intense. Quanah Parker grew up between 2 worlds and became the face of Comanche resistance. The son of Cynthia Ann Parker, taken as a young girl and raised in the tribe, he led his people when buffalo hunters pushed into their lands. Then came the reservation, and he had to negotiate with Washington to hold on to dignity and provide for his children and the clan. 2 women appear neatly dressed inside a room packed with details in a brothel in Miles, Montana. The town had around 1,000 residents, but a local judge said order didn't stick there. Morals on the ground, little law, and a lot of money moving in the shadows, while merchants and cowboys packed the streets late into the night. In Caldwell, Kansas, a cowboy shows up ready to get to work out on the range, hat pulled low, work shirt, and heavy chaps over his pants. On long days in the saddle and around cattle, that was basically insurance against thorns, snakes, and barbed wire. Plus, it helped block the cold and the prairie dust. A lot of them were made of rawhide, greased up, patched, and mended. George Armstrong Custer shows up in one of his last recorded images with the kind of posture of someone who liked being seen. He treated the camera like a stage. After his fame in the Civil War, he became a newspaper name out west. 2 months later, in 1876, that confidence would step onto the Great Plains, on a path that would lead to Little Bighorn for real. In the late 1850s, the ambrotype on a glass plate made portraits cheaper and pushed the daguerreotype into the background. It took chemicals, the right light, and holding still for a few minutes. That's why studios and traveling photographers spread. The man here has no name, but the straight look and travel clothes speak to a tough, ambitious West. In Greenwood County, Kansas, pioneers stop their trek and throw together a quick lunch beside the covered wagon. The stop was short. Check the wheels, check the gunpowder, set aside water, and think through the next crossing. A lot of people were chasing a homestead and a fresh shot, and that wagon became home and protection on the way. Joella Irwin became a name in rodeo back when it was still rare to see a woman competing in the big arenas. In the early 20th century, she traveled the circuit, rode the train, and faced dust and loud crowds. In different events, she rode with skill and nerves of steel and showed the old-timers that courage didn't belong to anyone. In 1884, at the San Carlos Reservation in Arizona, a rare card photo, the kind families kept at home, put an Apache leader in front of soldiers' lenses. A lot of scholars say it's Geronimo there before he became a pop icon. Back then, each copy got passed around like news in the saloon and around town, shaping fear and respect. After the Civil War, Jesse James became a name people whispered in Missouri. An ex-Confederate, he and the James Younger gang hit banks and trains and vanished into the woods. Part of the press treated him like a rebel. To the lawmen, he was just crime. In 1882, it all ended at home when Robert Ford shot him for the reward, and over dinner, everyone had an opinion. Back when the U.S. map still had a lot of blank on it, Kit Carson was the kind of man who knew how to read trails, rivers, and people. He started in the fur trade, became an explorer, and basically a scout who opened the way. His fame grew by guiding John C. Fremont, the Pathfinder, along routes that later turned into roads for the country. Sometime in the 1880s, a photo from southern New Mexico shows characters that still have historians scratching their heads. Some say the man standing is John Kinney, known for drifting through shady corners and gunfights. In 1875, he supposedly led a gang of thieves that kept the law chasing them night after night. In 1899, Pearl Hart made headlines by stopping a stagecoach and taking money in a holdup that already felt like something from the past. The story grabbed people because it was a woman playing the outlaw. The case ended up in court, and the press, including Cosmopolitan, sold it as real national entertainment. In 1895, in Ingalls, Oklahoma Territory, the young Rose Dunn, called the Rose of Cimarron, made the headlines. When the street turned into a crossfire between lawmen and outlaws, she didn't hide. She went to her wanted boyfriend, brought ammo, handled a horse, and helped him get away. The next day, the whole town was talking about it. John Horton Slaughter, Texas John, started out as a gunman after the Civil War and earned respect among rangers and cowboys. Later, he became a cattleman and set up a ranch near Douglas, Arizona. By 1885, he was already dealing with smuggling, cattle rustling, and saloon brawls, trying to keep the border in line day after day. Olive Oatman moved through the frontier like someone carrying an invisible scar. Captured when she was young and later living with the Mojave, she learned the language, how they farmed and traded, and she got a blue mark on her chin made with cactus ink. For them, it was a right. It ensured the person would be recognized and would pass in peace after death. The Texas Rangers were born in 1823, when Stephen F. Austin gathered horsemen to protect farms and trails in a land with little law. Only in 1835 did they become an official force. Over time, they became known for hunting cattle thieves, patrolling the border, and enforcing order when the county couldn't handle it. For a lot of people, they were the last resort. A rare Old West find brought to light a woman who looks like she ran a cattle operation, something a lot of people forget. Historian Mark Lee Gardner found this image in a shop in Missouri. The hat, the steady stance, and the signs of ranch life show a life of hard work and independence, the way the frontier demanded. After the Civil War, in Southern California, Tiburcio Vasquez became a name people whispered in ranches and cantinas. Of Mexican background, he spent nearly 2 decades on robberies and thefts, disappearing into the hills before the posses showed up. With every escape, the legend grew on wanted posters and in conversation, spooking the sheriffs. Back in the days of the big cattle drives, a cowboy made a point of stopping by the town studio when he had a little money. It was his way of sending proof back home and saying, "I'm doing fine," a worn hat, dirty boots, a gun in the holster, and a rope in his hand, just like out on the range. There, the work spoke for him. No drama, turning into a keepsake for the living room. In Oklahoma Territory, Bill Doolin became most wanted because the reward was high and the gang lived off robberies. In August 1896, the hunt closed in with a shootout. He went down after taking close to 20 shots, face to face with Deputy U.S. Marshal Heck Thomas, one of the 3 guardsmen, and no legend lasts forever. At the funeral of Tom and Frank McClory and Billy Clanton, Tombstone felt like a town split in 2. The procession carried a banner saying they were murdered in the streets, poking at the open wound of the OK Corral in 1881. The message was aimed at names like the Earp brothers and Doc Holliday, and it reminded everyone that justice and revenge walked side by side there. In the late 19th century and early 20th, Kate Rockwell, Klondike Kate, became a draw for miners on the Alaska gold route. Between saloons and camps, she sang and danced the hits of the day. When she stepped into a red chiffon dress, a lot of people forgot the loneliness and the cold for a few minutes, like being back home. In 1865, James Wild Bill Hickok shows up the way he really dressed. Work clothes, no showman costume. After the Civil War, he already had a reputation for being quick on the draw and steady in chaos. You can picture Kansas trails, saloon noise, and him keeping an eye out for trouble, just to make it home in one piece. In 1876, Dodge City was a pressure cooker with the cattle drives rolling in and the saloons packed. There, Bat Masterson and Wyatt Earp posed side by side, 2 badge-wearing guys trying to hold the line when the town could blow up over booze, gambling, and pride. It was law by force, and they had each other's backs when things got tight to keep the streets safe.